Commitment 2024. As we gear up for the presidential election, WJCL 22 is committed to bringing you the facts that matter most.
Georgia and Savannah are going to be right in the center.
Georgia, for the past 2 election cycles, voters in this very state, you who are here, have delivered.
We'll dive deep into the local candidates vying for your vote.
It's a special honor when you represent the area that you grew up in.
I want people to know that I am someone who commits to her path.
And the critical election security efforts underway to protect your voice.
At the end of the day, we're going to have a free, fair, and fast election.
WJCL 22 News Voter Guide Election Special starts now.
In Commitment 2024, we are counting down to Election Day on November 5th. And there's a lot at stake, including the race for the White House. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Shannon Royster.
And I'm Greg Coy. There are many topics to consider before you cast your ballot. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are pushing for votes in the battleground states all across the country, specifically Georgia. Both candidates targeting Georgia. Harris making at least 5 campaign stops in the Peach State, Trump visiting a half-dozen times. Both candidates also making stops right here in Savannah.
Because we're going to save our country. It will be the most important day, November 5th, in the history of our country.
One of the things that we know, this is going to be a tight race until the very end, okay? So let's not pay too much attention to the polls, because we are running as the underdog.
And according to ABC News, 5 big issues are the top concerns for voters. They include the economy, immigration, reproductive rights, foreign policy, and democracy. And here's a look at some of the key races in southeast Georgia. For example, in Chatham County, the district attorney seat is up for grabs. Incumbent Shalina Cook-Jones is up against Andre Pretorius. And also in Chatham County, we're closely watching the race for sheriff. Incumbent John Wiltshire against challenger Richard Coleman. And looking at the state races, U.S. House District 1 seat is on the ballot. A Democrat, Patty Hewitt, is running against the Republican incumbent Buddy Carter.
And WJCL 22 News' AJ Sisson joins me now in the studio. And AJ, for the very first time, we're bringing viewers a different way to learn more about the candidates.
And Shannon, it's called Coffee with the Candidates, where I sit down with candidates from across Georgia and South Carolina, and I get to know them, ask them about what they like to do, and just have coffee with them. And as Greg mentioned, a key race in Georgia is the first district for the House of Representatives between the incumbent of Buddy Carter and challenger Patty Hewitt. Now take a listen for my conversation with Buddy Carter. Why are you running again?
Well, I've been doing this for quite a while. I started off as mayor of the city of Pooler, and then was in the state legislature for 10 years and have been in Congress for 10 years now. I started when I was 10 years old, so that explains all that. But
Right.
Nevertheless, it's an honor to serve in Congress, but it's a special honor when you represent the area that you grew up in. And for me, Port Wentworth was where I grew up. I lived in Pooler since 1980 until about a year ago. We moved down to St. Simons and still in the district, and just love it. It's just, I tell people all the time, 435 districts in the United States, and I get to represent the very best one. And I mean it. Think about it. The entire coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of pristine coastline, 2 major seaports. The economy is booming. We've got so much to be thankful for and so much to be proud of here in the 1st District.
Now tell me, if you're reelected, first day, what's going to happen?
Well, the first thing we've got to do next year is important for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was enacted during the Trump administration. Those are set to expire the first quarter of next year. We need to get those extended. Otherwise, people are going to be facing hefty tax increases. 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, you're walking out of that office. How do you want people to remember you? Well, I just, first of all, I'm a pharmacist by profession, and obviously prescription drug pricing is something that I have focused on ever since I've been in Congress and in the state legislature, and I want to make sure that we give people better prescription drug prices. They deserve it. I just want to be remembered as someone from this area who had the honor and privilege of representing this area in the United States House of Representatives.
AJ, I really love this idea because it allows the candidate to kind of relax.
And it shows kind of more who they are and more of a
Exactly.
personal, casual conversation. And that's why I wanted to get all the candidates in our area doing that. And opposing Buddy Carter is Patty Hewitt, the Democratic candidate for Georgia's 1st District. Who is Patty Hewitt?
Who is Patty Hewitt? I think relative to this campaign, the most important thing that people need to understand about me is that I am a working middle class person and that I am very connected to the working class and the middle class of this country. That I come from a family of immigrants that came to this country for a better life. These are my grandparents who settled in Little Italy on Mulberry Street. And they instilled in us a true and deep love for our country, and in particular, service to our country.
What's the first thing that you're going to do as soon as you walk into office?
Work with my team to organize a group of citizen councils. I expect them to help inform my legislative work and to help ensure that Washington is really bringing solutions back home to this district that are meaningful and impactful, particularly to our working families.
But tell me, what's something that somebody might not know about Patty Hewitt?
My sport is power walking. I am a power walker. And just before the lockdown, I walked a half marathon, 13.1 miles.
How about that?
And I did that in 3 hours, 14 minutes, and 55 seconds, which is a time I am very proud of. But that took 4 months of daily committed training in order to prepare myself for that race. So I want people to know that I am someone who commits to her path, who has a vision, and I commit to it. And I will see that vision to the end.
And Shannon, a big thank you to the coffee shop that hosted us. That's Stir Coffee up in Pooler, right off Highway 80. I go there almost every single day. I recommend that you go there as well. So thank you, Stir. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Stir. And AJ, you had coffee, though, with other candidates as well.
Absolutely. And those will be rolling out throughout the week. I also spoke with Andre Pretorius, Sheriff John Wilcher, and more, which those will be released on our website at WJCL.com.
Well, you will certainly be wide awake for them.
Oh, don't worry. I had a lot of caffeine over the last couple of weeks.
All right, AJ, thanks so much.
All right, let's head over to the Low Country. One race that's closely being watched, of course, and followed is for South Carolina's 1st congressional district. Republican incumbent Congresswoman Nancy Mace is being challenged by her Democrat opponent, Michael B. Moore. And on election night, you'll hear terms such as the magic number and the Electoral College. But how does it work? And will this cycle be different from 2020? WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone sitting down with Georgia Southern's political science professor, Dr. Kimberly Martin, to get answers.
What's at stake in this election?
Right, so there's a lot at stake for us here in Georgia. So we've seen the national polls about the popular vote and who could likely get or win the popular vote. But it really all comes to who wins different states. And in this case, we're looking at specific swing states. And Georgia is one of those swing states this year. So all eyes will be on Georgia and a handful of other states around the country to determine who wins the Electoral College.
And we're talking about the Electoral College. Popular vote and Electoral College don't go hand in hand.
That's right.
And, you know, the person that wins the popular vote might not be the president.
Yeah, and in fact, we've seen that at 2 points in our recent history. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but didn't win the Electoral College, and Al Gore won the popular vote but didn't win the Electoral College. So it is always a possibility that that happens.
And explain that for people, because that really gives the smaller states the voice that they would want.
Sure. So the Electoral College is what we use to elect the vice president and the president here in the United States. And each state has the number of electors based on the number of representatives they have in the House of Representatives and the number of senators they have. So for instance, in Georgia, we have 14 members of the House of Representatives, 2 senators, so we have 16 electoral votes. Now, depending on who wins the majority of the votes in each state, so for instance, say it goes to Donald Trump, he wins the majority of the votes in Georgia, and it only has to be by 1 vote. That person gets all of the electoral votes in a winner-take-all process.
Now, to see sample ballots, take a look at our interactive voter guide on WJCL.com.
As election season heats up, voters are heading to the polls.
What you do will notice, though, that you'll get checked in a whole lot quicker.
Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger reveals what voters can expect across Georgia.
Plus, are you curious about what happens to your ballot after you cast your vote?
This right here is where the ballots are kept.
WJCL 22 News is taking you inside the polling process in Bullitt County, revealing how your selections are secured and counted.
As we approach the upcoming election, many voters are curious about what changes they can expect at the polls. WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone talked to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and he walks us through the check-in procedures at the polls and the ongoing debates about voter suppression, and fraud.
I'm here with Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. You are the top official in Georgia when it comes to election integrity. Walk us through what people could see that's different when it comes to their polling places in this election.
Well, from the standpoint of from what we had in 2022, you'll see virtually nothing different for in-person voting. It all is supported by photo ID. What you do will notice, though, that you'll get checked in a whole lot quicker. Instead of pulling those pieces of paper out, you have to fill it out and take that time. You now just give people your driver's license if you have one, or some other form of, photo ID. So just really quick check in, then you go ahead and vote.
And definitely this is your Super Bowl, some would say, because of just all that goes into elections, keeping them fair, keeping them free. And after 2021, definitely a shift in people's opinions on the election. On the left, you have voter suppression is argued. On the right, you have voter fraud. How do you deal with both of those claims, and what misinformation would you want to debunk in this election?
What we do is we just push back from either the left or the right when it's not supported by the facts. And so what we have shown, when Stacey Abrams talked about voter suppression, when she lost the election back in 2018, she said a couple things. One, the machines flipped the votes, and then about voter suppression. But we just continue to push back with facts. And then after the 2020 race, we, push back here with what the facts are. At the end of the day, we're going to have a free, fair, and fast election. And that's what's really exciting.
Now, after you vote and your ballot is cast, there's really nothing you can do to change your selections.
That's right. So WJCL 22 News' AJ Sisson explains where your ballot officially ends up after the polls close.
Is this the thing that's going to shred my ballot? Is this the thing, that's going to switch my vote? Well, none of our equipment is connected to the internet, for one.
This is Shantae Jones, a Bullitt County elections supervisor, giving us an inside look at the polls from your green voting card.
All right. Thank you so much. You can take your voter card.
To making your selections and casting your ballot.
This right here is where the ballots are kept. And so at the end of the night, the poll worker is going to come here and they're going to have a key and they're going to unlock this.
From there, the attending poll worker will close the poll right on the scanner.
And it's going to say, are you sure that you're ready to close it? And then they're going to say yes.
Like you're checking out at the store, it will print 3 receipts per Georgia state requirements. And that shows scanner information, how many ballots have been scanned, and a tally for the votes. These receipts must be signed by the polling manager and 2 other assistants.
When people are wondering where do the results go, especially with the hand count, they wanted us to count it. The count was more to say that if I cast 2 ballots in the scanner, do I have 2 ballots to take to the office? But all of the results are in the memory card.
That memory card, or a poll worker card, is sealed until a poll worker opens it. And that contains all the same information that is on those printed receipts.
They'll take out this poll worker card, and then this is what they'll have along with the additional paperwork, and they'll bring it up to our office and we'll put it into the server and upload the data. And then once we upload it, it's then transferred to a USB since nothing's connected to the internet, and that's how we go and put the information out to the public through the Secretary of State's portal.
A lot of great information there. WJCL 22 News' AJ Sisson joins us again in the studio.
AJ, there are over a dozen polling locations in Bullitt County.
Yeah, Greg, there are actually 16 individual polling locations in Bullitt County to be exact. And that memory card that Shantae showed you is in every ballot collector in every site. And the poll workers physically bring those cards from each precinct to the county's central polling site, where the information is transferred the same way, where everything must be done physically as all of their devices. They repeated this multiple times to me. No device is connected to the internet.
All right, they put in a lot of hard work.
Well, thank you guys.
Especially for the Bullitt County Election Commission.
Oh, absolutely. But it was a lot of fun.
All right, AJ, thank you.
Absolutely.
Right now, political ads are dominating the airwaves, and the attacks are intensifying.
I think the fear of what could happen is a strategy that has been used in many campaigns.
The impact of these attack ads and what they mean for voters.
Plus, as we approach the 2024 election, one critical topic is taking center stage, and that's election security. The measures in place to ensure that your vote counts and is counted correctly.
This election cycle has seen a rise in negative rhetoric on both sides of the aisle, with political ads everywhere. WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone asked ABC's Deputy Political Director Avery Harper about the attack ads.
Political ads, it's really all that we see and hear, especially in Georgia, and there's a lot of negativity. That's the strategy that both candidates seem to be using in battleground states. How does that work, and why does that work?
Well, I think the fear of what could happen is a strategy that has been used in many campaigns, and I think these candidates and these campaigns believe it will be effective in turning folks out to the polls. At this point in the game, turnout is key to who is going to win this election. And so as a part of their closing arguments, each of these candidates, Vice President Harris and former President Trump, are trying to draw contrast between their vision for the country and that of their opponents. And so, part of that is speaking negatively, I think, about the others' stances on various issues. Vice President Harris has framed former President Trump as a danger to democracy. And we've seen former President Trump say the same of Vice President Harris. And so, they are trying to use that as a way to mobilize their supporters to come out to the polls. And so in a race where the margins are going to be razor thin, whoever wins or loses will not, win or lose by that many votes. Every single vote matters.
A very big day ahead and leading up to it. ABC News Deputy Political Director Avery Harper, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Election security is a top concern heading into the 2024 election.
John Cardinale is here to help us get the facts.
When you think infrastructure, you probably think of things like bridges, roads, and electrical grids. But did you know the government considers elections to be critical infrastructure too? That term critical infrastructure is for anything that's considered vital to the U.S., things that could impact security, the economy, or public health and safety. So when we're talking about elections, what is covered under the critical infrastructure designation? It's things like voter registration databases and IT systems, voting systems and equipment, the counting, auditing, and certifying of results, polling places, government buildings, even the people running the elections are considered critical infrastructure. And the agency that takes the lead on safeguarding all of this is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It works with election officials all over the country to safeguard our election system, conducting training exercises and offering resources and support. It's all meant to secure elections, making sure your vote counts and is counted correctly. Helping you get the facts, I'm National Investigative Correspondent John Cardinale.
On Election Day, the polls will open at 7 o'clock in the morning and close at 7 o'clock at night. And that's for Georgia and South Carolina.
As soon as the polls close, WJCL 22 News will begin tracking the results. We'll have live team coverage across Southeast Georgia and the Low Country, covering the biggest races.
And to learn more about the candidates across our area, take a look at our interactive voter guide that you can find on WJCL.com. There you'll get to see sample ballots and find out where your polling station is located and what you need to bring to the polls to make sure that your voice can be heard. Thank you for joining us for our Get the Facts Voter Guide special.
That's right. You can count on WJCL 22 News on election coverage on air and online at WJCL.com. We will also see you tonight at 11 o'clock with more election news there, so you definitely don't want to miss it. Everyone have a wonderful evening.
Good night.